Good evening. My name is Robert. I am a certified assistant county assessor with the Assessment Review Commission. I'd like to thank Legislator Solage for inviting me to speak with you today to help you learn how to file a grievance online for free without the need to hire a company to do it for you. At this time, I would like to turn the microphone over to Legislator Solage for a few opening remarks.
Good
Yes.
evening. Thank you so much. I would like to thank the Assessment Review Commission, our great county executive, Laura Curran, and Robert Shapiro, and all the individuals who helped make this workshop presentation possible for you here tonight. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this important topic that we all should be concerned about, I would like to first thank everyone for adhering to the important health requirements of wearing a mask and social distancing and getting tested for COVID-19. I want to thank our entire community and also especially our health department directed by Commissioner Larry Eisenstein. They've been doing a wonderful job in keeping us safe. Let us all remember to stay safe. It's so important. We can win in this battle against COVID-19. I want to say briefly, today in Valley Stream, we organized a pop-up vaccine distribution where over 200 people from the community got vaccines for COVID-19. I want to thank our county executive and especially our governor, Governor Cuomo, for helping making that possible. We have to make sure that all communities have access to the vaccine, and Governor Cuomo made that possible here today in Valley Stream. Well, it was so apparent that our community is in favor of the vaccine, and we came out heavily in favor for it. And there will be another event in Elmont this Saturday. Please call our office at 516-571-6203 for our seniors to get vaccines. Again, this Saturday in Elmont, we have a vaccine distribution. Please call our office at 516-571-6203. Because of the COVID pandemic, there has been some significant economic issues that have manifested itself where that the average home that sold before in Nassau County, or at least in Elmont, which is close to the New York City border, or Valley Stream, or Inwood, or all these areas in the 3rd legislative district, the average home that would sell for $450,000 last year is now selling at $550,000 plus. And because of the pandemic, the interest rates are low, and so now it's a seller's market. And so I would like to let you know that if there's any year that's important to challenge in my opinion, for you to challenge your assessment, it should be this year. And I want to thank our county executive and also our assessor who decided in their wisdom to freeze the assessment rate for a brief time, a year and a half, I believe, or a year. And that's going to at least stabilize the situation, but we still have to worry about the school tax rate. But nevertheless, it's very important for you to challenge your assessment this year. And as you will hear in this presentation, it doesn't matter if the application is coming from a private company that does 30,000 applications on average, or a single person doing their own home. Please, the Assessment Review Commission, the Assessment Department, they look at every application equally and fairly. And I want to thank them for their diligence. They've been under a lot of criticism. I think they're doing a great job, and I want to thank them. They've improved the situation, especially for an area like the 3rd District, where we've seen other areas in Nassau County paying, in my opinion, not their fair share, and us paying more in the past. But those issues have been addressed by our county executive. And so without further ado, please listen to this presentation. If you could help your child with online homeschooling, then you can do this, okay? I hear the horror stories from parents about online homeschooling, even with my own son. And so if you could do that, you can do this. And so I pass the microphone back to Robert. I won't be able to chime in towards the end, but there is a presentation from the last session earlier in February. The deadline is April 30th. Again, if you have any questions, you can call my office, 516-571-6203. I pass the microphone back to Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Solage. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to take advantage of the Q&A feature of this online event. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A, and we will address as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. And the reason we are doing this at the end is because there is a delay between when I say things and when you hear them of about 30 or 40 seconds. So in order to avoid the confusion, we're going to save all of our questions to the end of the presentation. So we're going to be talking a lot about the Arrow system tonight. It's where you can file an appeal yourself without hiring a company. Now, when you hire a company, you have to pay them either a percentage of any savings you get or a flat fee. If you do this yourself, you're in total control, and any savings you get all go to you. So we highly recommend that you do this yourself, and obviously you agree, which is why you are all here tonight. So what you're looking at right now on the screen is our webpage. It's the Assessment Review Commission. You can go to that page by going to askarcnassau.com. Going to point out two things for you. At the bottom of your screen, you'll notice there's a video. That is a 6-minute YouTube video, which is a shortened presentation as compared to this one, which is going to go on for about maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. After you've done our presentation tonight, you can't remember something, you can always go back and watch that 6-minute video, start and stop it and so forth, and use it as a refresher. The other thing I want to point out is on the right-hand side of the screen, and it's maybe in orange or perhaps red, depending on your screen, where it says ARC 2022-2023 brochure. And if you click on that link, you will download our latest brochure. Now, this is the same brochure that we would typically hand out in our live sessions in person. This brochure has a lot of important information. It's got our address, it's got our phone numbers, it's got our email address, it's got a whole bunch of other links that may be important to you. But probably most important is right in the middle of your screen where it says 2022-2023 ARC calendar, and it has all the important dates. If you'll notice on the second line down or third line down, it says January 4th to March 1st is the ARC filing period. It's important to know, and the legislator mentioned it, that the deadline has been extended from March 1st. It's now until April 30th. So you have time. Again, we recommend you don't wait till the last minute. You get it done as soon as possible. You can always do it quick and easy in a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then later, you have time to go back and make changes. Perhaps a couple of days later, you thought about it, you want to make a change. You can make changes to your appeal online by yourself, again, up until that deadline of April 30th. So we really recommend you do this online. It's easy, saves you money on a stamp, and there's so many reasons why you should do this yourself as compared to hiring a firm. We're going to talk about the Arrow system tonight. That stands for the Assessment Review on the Web. And how you get there is either the link on our page on the left-hand side that says Arrow, or you can go directly by typing in, as you see at the bottom, www.nassaucounty.ny.gov/ARC/Arrow. So we're going to click on the link, and it's going to bring you to the Arrow page. And again, that stands for Assessment Review on the Web. By the way, you'll see at the bottom, in the bottom right corner, a little reminder of how it says the deadline for filing an appeal has been extended to April 30th, 2021. You're going to see that throughout the presentation. Again, we want to remind you, while the deadline was March 1st, it is now April 30th. So the first thing you need to do before you use the Arrow system is register. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see it says register with ARC. Now, if you've already done this online before in the past, you already have an account, but you'd still want to check your registration information. So in the event that you already have an account, you're going to click on change registration info because you want to check everything out. We're going to click here, and you are on the registration page. Now here you need to put information in, specifically everywhere there is an asterisk. So first name, last name, street address, city, state, and zip code, phone number, very important, a number that we can actually reach you at. About halfway down, it says ARC is now offering the option of receiving electronic or paper notifications for offers and determinations. What that means is you have a choice. You can either be contacted by email or contacted by regular mail. Even though you were doing the appeal online, you still can get contacted by paper if that's what you want. We strongly recommend you choose the electronic feature. You'll get much faster notices. You can get responses back and forth. One thing that's very important, if you do choose electronic, if you choose email, is every so often check your spam folder and make sure you're not missing information that's come from us and is sitting in your spam folder. Below that, you're going to enter your email address. And part of the reason we tell you to check your registration info if you've registered in the past is your email address may have changed from year to year. If you were at one job and you've switched jobs, well, then you may need to change your email address. Also, perhaps you used to be with Fios and now you switched to Optimum Online. Again, double check, make sure that email address that we have in the system is current and works. You're going to choose a user ID and a password below. Later on, if you happen to forget your password or user ID, you can always contact customer service. They can help you out with that, either telling you your user ID or telling you your password or resetting it. They're very helpful. You can give them a call over the phone and they will help you out. Again, that's if you misplace your user ID. You're going to read through the certification below that. And once you've read it all through, you will click on Complete Registration at the bottom of your screen. You'll get a little note saying, "Thank you for registering. Please click here to continue." And you'll notice now on the Arrow page, it says, "Welcome to Arrow, Assessment Review on the Web." And now it says, John Smith. And of course, in your case, it would say your name. Now, if you are all done for now, you want to register, but that's it for today. On the left-hand side, it says log out. You would click on log out. That's very important to log out, especially if you're not using your own computer. Perhaps you don't have a computer. You're at the library borrowing one of theirs, and it's a public computer, so you don't want to leave your information on there. So make sure whenever you are done, you go to the left side of the screen and choose log out. Also, when you register, you're going to get a confirmation email that will be sent to the email address you entered on that registration page. Again, it may look like this. It may look a little different depending on what you use to check email, but it's going to confirm your registration information. So make sure you hang on to that because that's a great place to look up your ID in case you forget about it. And again, double check your spam folder if you don't receive that email. Okay, so now that registration is complete, next time you visit Arrow, you can click on the Login tab on the left-hand side, enter your username and password as you see below, and click Login. Okay, we're going to talk about Sales Locator now. Now, ARC has provided a Sales Locator tool to assist you in filling out your application form. Now, this is only able to be used for residential 1, 2, or 3-family homes, not for condos and not for co-ops, unfortunately. It's just not configured. It can't be used that way. The Sales Locator provides adjusted sales prices of properties that are comparable to yours, which can help you determine if your property is currently undervalued. And we'll talk about what comparable is in a few moments. So to file an appeal with the assistance of the Sales Locator, at the bottom of the screen, you're going to click on where it says, "Do you have a good case for filing an appeal?" So we'll click on that. And now we are in Sales Locator. First thing we're going to do is find your property. And you can do that one of two ways. You can either enter the parcel ID, which is the section block and lot numbers, or you can put the address in. Most folks don't know their section block and lot. Totally fine. You can put your address in. Now we're going to use 504 Christie Street as our address for this presentation. So we're going to put in 504 for the number. We're going to put in Christie. We're not going to put in street. The reason being, we don't know in the system if it's listed as Christie Street, ST, or Christie Street, STREET. If we put the wrong one in, it's not going to come up in a search. So rather than put lane or avenue or road, you just leave it blank and just put the name of the actual street. For us, it's Christie. You're going to add the city, add the zip code, and you're going to click search. And then your property should appear at the bottom in the search results. As you see, ours is here. We're going to click on the parcel ID. And at this point, it's going to ask you to enter a security code because it wants to make sure you are not a robot. So on the left-hand side, you see letters or numbers in the black box. You're going to type those letters or numbers in the white box. It's not case sensitive, which means whether it's capitalized or lowercase doesn't make a difference as long as it's correct. You're going to click on continue. And now you should see your property. So in our case, we see 504 Christie Street. It's got the address that says Class 1 residential. Property use is a one-family home. School district is Rockville Center. It's not in a village. Town or city, in this case, is Hempstead, and it's not a waterfront property. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see where it says Assessment Information 2022/23. Appeal period is January 4th to March 1st. Now again, as noted above, that deadline has been extended from March 1st to April 30th, 2021. Valuation date is January 4th. What that means is as we're going through to determine whether our market value and our assessed value is correct, it's going to be based on a date, and that date is January 4th, 2021. If you look at the bottom, it says taxable market value of $461,000. That is what the Department of Assessment has determined is the value of your home based on that day of January 4th, 2021. And that translates to an assessed value of $461,000. Now, what we're doing in this whole process is we're not grieving our taxes, we're grieving our market value, we're grieving our assessed value. So what you're doing here is you're saying that the Department of Assessment has determined your value is $461,000. And in your opinion, you feel that's too high, that it should be less. That is why you grieve. Okay, on the left-hand side of your screen, it says dwelling information. We're going to take a close-up look at that. So on the left, you see it says style Cape. It talks about the construction, year built, lot size 7725 or 35, excuse me. That is the size of your property in square feet. Living area is 1,332 square feet. Now the living area is the above grade. It means it doesn't include your basement. So in this case, we have the Cape that has a first floor and a second floor. And if you add the square footage of the first floor and second floor together, you get the total living area, which in this case is 1,332 square feet. Also indicates we have 2 full bathrooms, no half bath, a 1-car garage, and as we said before, yes, it has a basement. Now, in case any of this information is incorrect, you can click on change values and make corrections. So in this case, we're showing that we have 2 full baths. In actuality, for this example, we have 3 full baths. So we've clicked on change values. We're going to change that 2 to a 3, and then we're going to click on apply changes after making those corrections. Now, it's very important at this point to let you know that any changes you make are only temporary and only used for sales locator. It does not make a permanent change of a database. So if you look and it says that your home has 15 bathrooms and you only have 2, well, you don't want them to say you have 15 bathrooms because they're going to add value to your home, your assessed value based on those extra 13 bathrooms. So what you need to do to make a permanent change is contact Nassau County Department of Assessment. And you can contact them by phone. The phone number is listed here, and we'll have that information again at the end of the presentation. And again, for any permanent changes, anything that's incorrect, you need to call Department of Assessment to make the changes permanent. If it's something interior-wise, like a bathroom or an extra kitchen, they may need to arrange to do an inspection of your home, and they would contact you. They would make an appointment, and they would come out to your home and do an interior inspection. If it's something exterior, say they think you have a garage, but you knocked down the garage 2 years ago. Something like that, they may be able to just drive by your property and see from the street that you no longer have a garage. So again, it depends. But again, anything permanent that you need to make a change to, you're going to have to call Department of Assessment. We're going to keep it as it is with only 2 full baths. We're going to click on Find Sales on the left-hand side. And now we see comparable sales. Now, what you do in this case is you select properties from the sales locator's output by clicking on the checkboxes in the select column. Your property, in our case 504 Christie Street, is the first search result, and that's there for reference. So now, these are all sales that are located in the same school district as yours, because it's very important to stay in the same school district. You can see on the left-hand side where it says proximity, it's showing you how close these homes are in proximity to yours. And you'll see that on the left-hand side again, right after it says select. Now, when we're looking at sales, we're looking for comparable sales. What does it mean to be a comparable sale? Well, in our case, our home is a Cape, so we're going to try to look for Cape style homes that are similar in size in terms of living area, in terms of lot size, preferably in terms of year too. And you do the best you can with what's available. You may not find Cape styles that are exactly the same in size. You may not find homes that are similar to yours in terms of style. You may have a ranch and there's been no ranch style home sold. So you do the best you can. You look for other homes that are similar in square footage, even if they're different in style. We're also looking for market sales. Now, what does it mean to be a market sale? Well, a market sale means you have a person, typically they don't know each other. You have a person who's trying to sell the house for as much as they can. You have a buyer who's trying to buy the house for as little as they can. They negotiate, come to an agreed price. That's a market sale. What's not a market sale? A foreclosure, when a bank forecloses on a property. An estate sale may not be a market sale. Oftentimes, if a person passes away, the family just wants to sell the house as quickly as possible. So that may sell for below what a typical sale would go for. Now, you'll notice here that it doesn't say whether these are market sales or not. So how do you know? Well, a good general rule, it's not always true, but it's a good general rule, is if you're looking at sales, and in this case, most of these homes are selling between, say, $430,000 and $570,000 or $580,000. If you see a home that's sold for, say, $250,000 and it looks like an oddball, more than likely that was not a market sale and that would not be valid for use for your appeal. You're looking for market sales. If you happen to choose a non-market sale, the appraiser that reviews your appeal will probably notice something looks awry. They'll do the research, and if you've chosen a non-market sale, they'll probably won't consider it when they're looking to whether or not you have a valid appeal. So again, if the sale price doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. But again, you have the option to include it if you'd like. You can choose up to 5 comparable sales using the sales locator feature. You could add more later on if you need to in your application, but again, only 5 can be chosen. People often ask at this point, how many sales should I use? What's the magic number? Well, there is no magic number. You're looking for sales that support your case for a reduction. That may be 1, 2, maybe 3 sales, maybe 5 sales. In my experience, and this is only my opinion, if you cannot prove your case in 3 to 5 sales, having 10 sales probably is not going to prove your case either. But again, it's entirely up to you. So when you've chosen your sales, you're going to click on Select Check Properties and Continue, which is at the bottom. And you'll notice we've checked on 3. So we're going to choose those 3. Click at the bottom. And now you will see your home, your subject property, in a column and side by side with the comparables you've chosen. And you'll see that adjustments have been made to those comparable properties as compared to your home. So let's look at sale number 1, 508 Stratford Road. If you go down a little bit in the yellow box, you'll see that that home sold on September 13th, 2019 for $430,000. And that home is a Cape built in 1948. If you go down below where it says adjustments, you'll see the computer has made adjustments to compensate for differences between your home and that sale. So in this case, our subject has a lot area of 7735, and that first sale has a lot area of 6240, so it's smaller. So the computer has added value to that home to account for that difference in square footage. Our subject has 2 full bathrooms. Sale 1 only has 1 full bathroom. So in this case, the computer has added $10,000 to account for the difference between a home having 1 bath and a home having 2 bathrooms. Living area, you'll see this home is smaller than ours. So again, we've added value. And we also have a garage while this home has no garage. So value has been added again. So if you'll notice down at the bottom of the screen, you will see that the home that sold for $430,000, if it had been more similar to ours in terms of lot area, bathroom count, square footage, garage sizes, would have sold for $467,955. That's the adjusted price. And you'll notice those adjustments have been made to sales 2 and 3. Now, typically you have 3 sales. You can add them together, divide by 3, and get an average sale price. In this case, you do have the option, though. Just above the bottom yellow boxes where it says weight, you'll notice it says 34, 33, and 33 for each of those 3 sales. Those 3 numbers have to equal 100% because we have 3 sales. They've divided it a little differently, 34, 33, and 33. You have the option when you were doing this to modify those weights. And what that means is if one of your sales you feel is more reliable, is your best proof that you deserve a reduction, you can change those weights. So you may decide that the best sale is comparable 1, sale 1. So you want to put a lot of weight on that one. So you change the 34 to 50. And then you change the weight on the other 2 to 25 and 25. And what would happen is, and you'll see in a moment, how we have both an average and a weighted average. It would give you 2 different figures. For our example, we're going to keep it the same. We're going to click on continue. And you have to accept this certification, this disclaimer that says that ARC's sales locator is not an appraisal. It's not an opinion of value of your property from the Assessment Review Commission. And you have to acknowledge that disclaimer to proceed. You would click on I agree, proceed, and now you will see results for selected sales. So you'll see weight adjusted sale price, the range of the adjusted sale prices, the average adjusted sale price, and a reminder about the taxable market value. So because we didn't change the weights, the average and the weighted adjusted sale prices are very similar. If we had changed the weights, those numbers may have been drastically different. The taxable market value is a reminder that right now the Department of Assessment says your home, the assessed value, the market value in this case, would be $461,000. And it appears from the sales we chose that the home is actually worth closer to $477,000. So in this case, the home may be undervalued or underassessed. Now, does that mean you can't continue? Absolutely not. When you file an appeal, providing sales is entirely optional. Using Sales Locator is optional. So just because you use Sales Locator doesn't mean you have to agree with it. So we're going to continue by clicking on Continue to submit an appeal. Now, the first thing we do here is we're going to click on the property type from the drop-down list to get to the correct application form. For most of you, it's going to be the Form AR1, which is for value claims on a 1, 2, or 3-family home. If any of the other applies, you can choose that, but we're going to choose AR1. Okay, real quick thing to know. When you use Sales Locator and then you go into your application, some data from the Sales Locator is going to get imported automatically into your application. So in this case, you'll notice the 3 sales we had in Sales Locator were put automatically into Part E. Also, the average adjusted sale price from the Sales Locator has been put into Part D. Now, you can change that later on if you want, but just know that it automatically gets put in there if you use Sales Locator. One more thing before we get into the actual form itself is you'll notice there's a whole bunch of these blue question marks throughout the form and out the application. These question marks are your friend. They're like a helper on your shoulder. If you are confused about what they are asking at any point and you see a blue question mark, you can take your mouse and move it over the question mark. You don't even have to click. You'll notice one of these yellow boxes will pop up and give you information to explain what they're looking for. So in this case, they're saying, if you own the house, write your name. If you're filing for a relative who owns the house, write that person's name, and so on. So again, anytime you're not sure what's going on, put your mouse over the question mark, and hopefully you will get the answer from the helper. Okay, so we're going to start with Part A of the application form. Now you'll notice from Sales Locator, the parcel ID, as well as the address and name on the roll are in your application already. You're going to enter the taxpayer applicant's full name. It's asking for the property owner next. So if you have a co-owner, perhaps a spouse, you would add it here. Or if they're not your spouse, but they co-own the property, maybe it's a sibling, you would add them here. It's very important to know that if a person is not on the application, they will not be able to speak to our staff. So if it's John Smith and Jane Smith are married, and only John Smith's name is on the application, and Jane Smith wants to call our staff and ask a question, if her name is not on this application, our staff can't speak to her. So makes it a lot easier. It may avoid some spousal arguments. Please include your spouse or your co-owners or siblings, include them on the application where it says property owners. Under form, you're going to choose for most of the individual, but if any of the other options apply, you can choose that. That's part A. Now, part B is going to ask you to enter a full market value. Now, we already have one here from Sales Locator, but if you remember, Department of Assessment is saying our home is worth $461,000, and right here, it says $476,938. Now, if you're looking for a reduction, you need to put a number lower than the $461,000 that the Department of Assessment says your home is worth. So you can erase that number that's there automatically and enter a different number. You may want to enter $440,000 or $430,000, whatever you truly feel is the correct full market value. Below that, it's going to ask you, is your property offered for sale or under contract? So if your house has been on the market or if it's in contract, you would check yes, and then you would enter the price. Otherwise, you could just leave that as saying no. Part C is nice and easy. Part C is filled out automatically. You're filling this out. Representative type is self. There is nothing to do with Part C. Part D. Part D, the first thing you will need to do is click on the pink display button to open it up so you can see all of Part D. Now, Part D, as it says, is optional. You could fill out as much, as little, or nothing at all in Part D. It is entirely up to you. But what I like to stress of Part D is the bottom third of your page, where it talks about things that impact your location. Much of a home's value is based on location, location, location. And if there's any characteristics that adversely or negatively impact your home's marketability, your ability to sell your home, this is where you talk about this. So let's look at waterfront. Are any of these adjacent to or visible from your house? Waterfront. Now, if your home is a waterfront property, you may think, well, it's a waterfront property, that adds value. However, let's think of it this way. If you're on the North Shore and it's calm, it's by the sound, you have beautiful views, and the water stays calm, that would probably add value to your home. But if your home is on the South Shore of Long Island and every time it rains, the water comes up over your deck and floods your basement, well, that would be a negative. So in that case, you can check off waterfront, and below where it says other facts, you could type out, my home is on the South Shore, every time it rains, my basement floods. We could look at railroad. Again, now a railroad may be a plus or a minus. If you're in an area where a lot of folks commute to the city, being within walking distance of the railroad might be a great thing, so you don't have to go worry about parking. Or being close to the railroad may make it noisy. That would be a negative. So again, you can click on the railroad and say, I back to the railroad, and it adds lots of noise. You would look at all these options the same way. A park, commercial property. Are you near a gas station? Are you by a golf course? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Golf courses, some people like to view. Other folks say, I don't want to worry about somebody hitting a golf ball through my window. Let's look at street with a painted center line or other traffic separation. Are you on a busy road? Do you have a lot of traffic? Is your road busy even if there's no double yellow line? Are you near a school and you get a lot of bus traffic? Are you near a school, not that close, but you're the first street that has open parking? All the other streets near the school have signs that say no parking, so you can't park in front of your own house. These are things, as a homeowner, you would know that someone reviewing your application may not readily know. You are the best advocate for yourself and your home. So anything you know that you think somebody buying your house would say, you know what, your house is beautiful, but it's on a really busy road. It's by Hempstead Turnpike. I am only willing to pay $10,000 less than you're asking for, whatever the case may be. That is the mindset you need to look at. And this is where you can make that case, Part D. Again, it's entirely optional, but I am a big fan of Part D. One more thing to note before we continue. Other facts, that box at the bottom is somewhat limited in how much space you actually have. If it's not enough room for you, you can type a Word document or a Google document, whatever you use to type letters and so forth, and type out whatever you need to tell us, And then before our presentation is over, we're going to show you how you can attach that document to your application. So don't feel you're limited by the space on the form. But again, Part D, 100% optional. Part E is also optional. You do not have to include any sales when you are filing an appeal. It's entirely up to you. Now, if you use Sales Locator, your sales get brought in automatically. Does that mean you have to use those sales? Again, no. If you look on the left-hand side, you will see it says delete parcel under each and every one of those sales. If that first sale, 508 Stratford, you think it's not helping you, you want to get rid of it, you would click on delete parcel and it would take out that sale from your application. On the right-hand side, you'll notice it says comments. Maybe you want to keep that sale, but add some comments. Maybe 508 Stratford had a brand new kitchen with granite countertops and Corinthian leather, whatever the case may be. Put some notes in there. Yes, this home sold for $430,000, but it was gut renovated and my house has not been updated. Whatever the case may be. That's where you can put some comments. At the bottom, you'll notice there's a blank area where you can add sales. And again, we told you before, Sales Locator can only add 5 sales, but you are not limited in your application how many sales you can add. So you may have found a sale. Maybe the house next door just sold. Maybe you will look on Zillow or Realtor.com, or maybe you've spoken to a local realtor. You can contact local realtors. We all get those things in our mailbox saying, are you selling your home? Give me a call. Well, you know what? You can give the realtor a call and say, not selling my home, but I'm looking to grieve my assessment. Can you help me out with some comparable sales? Very often, realtors will help you because they're hoping if and when the time comes for you to sell your home, you will remember how helpful they were and give them a call. So if you're going to add your own sale, you would search for the ID the same way you did for your own parcel. You would manually enter the sale date and sale price and add some comments. Found it on Zillow, got it from a realtor, whatever the case may be. Each time you add a sale, a new blank form will appear below. So even though you only see 4 spots, you're not limited by that. But again, Part E, as we said before, is 100% optional. You don't need to include sales. Okay, Part F, however, not optional. So in Part F, there's another security question where they're going to ask you to retype those letters. Make sure you haven't turned into a robot while you're doing this. You're going to read the certification statement, making sure that you understand that you were saying that all the statements you made in this application are true and correct to the best of your knowledge. And read through the entire thing before you actually choose the signatory certification, which in this case is owner of record, and then click Submit Application Form when you're all set. Now, one of the great things about doing the appeal online is if you make a mistake, you find out right away. If you made a mistake and you mailed in your application, you would have to get into the mail. Our folks would have to contact you, let you know about the mistakes, and then get it corrected. But here, the form lets you know right away. So as you can see, it is said the appeal is not submitted. We found errors in Part A. We found errors in Part B. And what's even better is it shows you exactly where those errors are. So you'll see in Part A, we forgot to put a taxpayer applicant full name. We didn't choose the form. In Part B, perhaps, we didn't add a full market value. So you would make those changes in those sections. And then when you're all set, you would click on the right where it says Submit Changes. And this time, if you did it right, you will get a red confirmation message on your screen. It says your appeal has been submitted. It will give you the application number. Then it'll say you can make changes and resubmit or choose one of the following. So besides that, you're also going to get an email, a receipt for your appeal. And again, if you don't get that within a day, check your spam folder and make sure it's not sitting in your spam folder. So you've completed the appeal. You now have the option to return to the home page if you're all done. You could submit another appeal if you have maybe more than one property, or you can view or add attachments to your appeal. So as you mentioned before, if you wanted to type everything out on a Word document, you can attach that. Maybe 6 months ago, you had an appraisal done, and that supports your case. Well, you can attach the appraisal. What you need to do is you're going to click on View or Add Attachments. And we're going to remind you at this point that documents can be added and changes can be made to your appeal online up until the filing period closes. So up until April 30th in this case, you can make these changes yourself. So we're going to click on Yes for would you like to add one now for the attachments. Click on Yes. And now a pop-up window is going to appear. Now to upload the attachment, you're going to click on Choose File. You're going to navigate to the attachment and double click on it the same as you would if you were attaching something to an email. You're going to choose the document type from the drop-down list, which on the right you can see there's various options including appraisal, maps, other documents, whatever one meets yours, choose that one. And when in doubt, choose other. You're going to click Submit Attachment when you're all set. And as you see in the middle of the screen, it says file name test.pdf, and it says legal document. That's what we've attached to our application. Now, if you added the wrong attachment, you can just click on Delete Document, and it will remove that from your appeal. Or if you want to add more attachments, using the same pop-up window, you click on Upload New Document, or if you're all done, you can return to the appeal form by clicking Return to the Appeal. Now, like we said, in the event that you want to either add or delete an attachment after the filing period ends, you won't be able to do it yourself online, but you can still send it to our staff, and they will scan it and attach it for you. And you can send that into the Assessment Review Commission, 240 Old Country Road, 5th floor, Mineola, New York, 11501. Attention, Residential Supervisor. Okay, after clicking Return to the Appeal form, when all your documentation for the appeal has been uploaded, you will see that your application has been received by ARC. And if you look on the bottom right, you will see status and it says Received. Now you can click on the arrow Home tab to go back to the home page, or click on Log Out tab to log out of your account if you're all done. And again, remember, if you are in a library or using a public computer or anywhere else, be sure to log out when you're done. Now, you can also check your application at any time by going to the Appeal Filing Status Change tab. Now, a quick reminder before we continue. Once you start your application, you have to complete it. If you stop, you walk away for a little while and you come back, the form may have timed out and kicked you out of the system. And if you do that, what happens is you've got to start all over again. So what you can do is you can quickly fill out the application parts A and B and C, fill out part F, submit it, get your application number, and then you are good to go. You can go back a week later if you want when you have more time and fill out part D and part E. But as long as you have your appeal in and you have that application number in on time, you're all set and you've got it in before the deadline. And again, you can make changes online up until the April 30th deadline. After that, any changes you want to add or subtract, you would contact our staff and we would do it for you. Okay, so we have filled out the entire application using Sales Locator, but you can fill the form out without using Sales Locator. Again, comparable sales are not a requirement. So we're going to show you how to do this without using Sales Locator. Now we're going to go a little faster because there's a lot of repetition from what we just did. But again, if you have any questions, if I go too fast, ask us and we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. So in this case, either on the left-hand side or at the bottom of the screen, you're going to click on where it says File an Appeal Online. You're going to choose which form, again, for most of you, for 1, 2, or 3 family homes. It is the AR1 form. Now, you could search for the parcel ID if you know it, or you could search by the property. So again, it's 504 Christie. Again, we don't add street, lane, or avenue. We just keep it the street name. Town, zip code, click on search, find our parcel ID, choose it. And as you see now in part A, it shows the parcel ID, the address, and the name of the roll. Like before, you're going to enter the taxpayer applicant's full name, add a spouse in the next box if you have one, or maybe a sibling, again, whoever's a co-owner. Choose the correct form. In this case, it's individual. Part B is similar, except because we did not use Sales Locator, it starts off blank, and you have to enter the owner's estimate of full market value for your form to be submitted and accepted. So we could add, in this case, perhaps $430,000 because that's below what Department of Assessment has as our value. It's important to remember you're not adding a $sign, you're not adding a decimal point, you're not adding any commas. So for $430,000, you would just add 430,000. Below that, again, it's asking for if your property is on sale or in the contract. If the answer is yes, you can include that sale price. Part C, like before, nothing to do. It's done automatically for you. Part D is the same as before. You click on the pink display tab to open the form wide. You can fill out as much or as little as you want with this section. Again, it's entirely optional. But again, if a big part of the reason you're filing appeal is there's something negative about your home's location, this is where you do it, Part D. Part E, entirely optional. Right now it's blank because we've had no sales. You can keep it this way, or you could add sales manually. But again, it's entirely up to you. There's no need to give us sales as part of your appeal application. Part F is still required. You fill out the security box. You read through the certification statement. You choose which one applies to you in terms of a signatory certification. Again, for most of you, it's going to be owner of record, and you will submit the application form by clicking at the bottom. Same as before, if you make any mistakes, it will tell you the appeal is not submitted and tell you and show you exactly where those mistakes are. You would make those corrections and click submit changes. And if you get it right, you get a message saying your appeal has been submitted and give you the application number. You will also get that confirmation just as we mentioned before. Okay, say you've gone online already, you've submitted your appeal, and about a week later or so, you decide you want to make some changes. So you would log into your account by clicking login. You would go to appeal filing status change. And now you have the opportunity to make changes to your appeal. So you would click on the proper application number for your appeal to see your submitted application. If you have multiples, in case you have multiple properties, you can do a search to find your specific property. You're going to click on the application number in the search results. And now on the application page, you can edit the information you provided and confirm the new information by clicking on Submit Changes. So in this case, we're showing you Part B, and you have there $460,000, and maybe you want to change it to $400,000. So you would erase it, type in 400,000, and then you would click where it says Submit Changes, and you would click Submit Changes. Remember, you're only submitting changes. You're not reapplying, so you're not going to try and click on Submit Application. A reminder again, changes and additions can only be made online by you until the filing deadline, which is April 30th. After that, you're going to have to contact customer service and let them make those changes for you. If you want to make any additional documents, you can do so by clicking where it says ARC Communications/Attachments. You would click on that. Just like before, you would have the opportunity to either upload a new document or delete a document just the same way you did before. One more thing, and folks, we are almost done. Withdrawing your appeal. On the application page, you can withdraw your appeal by clicking on Withdraw Appeal, which is on the left-hand side. Now, why would you do that? Well, we would have to remind you that only one appeal can be filed per parcel, and all duplicates must be withdrawn for your application to be processed. So if somehow there are two appeals for the same property in the system, we cannot look at either one. Well, you'll be contacted and say you have to delete one of these appeals. Why would there be two? Well, maybe you hired a rep and then you changed your mind and entered your own appeal but never contacted the rep. Or you did it yourself and then you hired a rep, vice versa, whatever the case may be. So how do you withdraw the appeal? Well, you have to make sure all the pop-up blockers are turned off on your browser. And if you're not sure, you can Google it for your particular browser, whether it's Chrome or Edge. So you're going to click on Withdraw Appeal. Screen's going to pop up and it's going to say, are you sure you want to withdraw the appeal? Are you positive? Please understand that if you withdraw the appeal, once you delete it, you can't undo that. You have to start all over again if you made a mistake and deleted it by accident. So if you are sure, you're going to click where it says, I have read the terms of the agreement, and you're going to click where it says agree. And if you do all that, you'll notice that the application has been withdrawn, and on the right-hand side where it says status, it says withdrawn. Okay, folks, believe it or not, that is the presentation. It is now time to answer all of your questions. And to do so, I'm going to bring on the Vice Chairperson of the Assessment Review Commission, Jeremy May.
Well, thank you, Rob, and good evening, everybody. I hope that you were all assisted and helped by the presentation. I wanted to join Rob during the Q&A session because Rob and I have a different perspective, education, and training. So hopefully between the two of us, we can answer your questions as completely as possible. So let's not waste any more time and see what we can help everyone with. So we have a question about filing on Arrow if one has previously used a company. When a representative company uses Arrow, they use their own account and login information to file appeals under. So if you're going to file yourself, you're going to need to create your own account and file on your own behalf. There is no account for you to take over from the representatives to file your own account. You're just going to have to create your own to file under your own name, and the representative firm will continue off into the distance using their own account for their own business. Okay. If you need to look at previous account applications that you have filed with the Assessment Review Commission, you can get assistance with that from our customer service team. Our contact information for that is up on the screen currently. If you have previously used a representative or a firm to file on your behalf, I would also suggest that you reach out to them and contact them for any work they have done on your behalf. I would think that they would be willing to share that with you. But if for whatever reason they are not, you are certainly entitled to look at applications that have been filed on your behalf in the past. And our customer service team will be happy to assist you with that. Okay, we have a member of the audience that is concerned perhaps that their assessment may already be low, and if their assessment is low, should one still file an appeal? Paraphrasing slightly. I think what we here at ARC would recommend is that the question that each homeowner should ask themselves is whether they think that the number posted by the Department of Assessment is too high. And too high compared to what? Too high for what your property would sell for or would have sold for on January 4th of this year. If you think that the Department of Assessment posted your property at a value less than it could have sold for on January 4th, it would make less sense to file an appeal because that would mean, in your opinion, the Department of Assessment has undervalued your property. That being the case, you could still file an appeal if you wanted to, just to, take your chance at getting the greatest possible benefit that you could. But if you concluded that the Department of Assessment had undervalued your property, then you would be concluding that your assessment is, if not necessarily fair because it's undervalued, that it's not overassessed and therefore you're not being harmed by it. But again, that's a personal choice and personal decision. We here at ARC are not here to try to push someone towards one decision or the other. We're just here, in my opinion, to try and help everybody understand some of the tools that are available to conduct your own research and make your own decision on that subject. Every property owner has the right to file an appeal. They don't need to agree with the Department of Assessment or the Assessment Review Commission before choosing to file an appeal. That's just simply a right that any property owner has. Okay. Rob, if you're trying to contribute, you muted yourself.
Sorry, there we go. I apologize. I think it's important to know also that if you file an appeal, there's no risk of them raising your assessed value.
That's correct. So we here at ARC have basically only two options when we are reviewing an appeal. We can choose to agree with the Department of Assessment, in which case the number does not change, or we can determine that the Department of Assessment has set the value of the property too high and therefore offer a reduction of the property. We have no authority under the law to increase an assessment as a result of an application before ARC. Okay. We have a question here about the logistics of ARC's process. Some members of the audience are curious as to what point they may hear back from ARC after they filed an application. We have an annual process. ARC's review period for every tax year is actually about 15 months if you also include the filing period. And we do see a high volume of applications. So it is not necessarily as swift as we would like, but we are doing our due diligence, doing our research, and coming to reasoned recommendations and final determinations. So it does take some time. For the 22-23 tax year, we would probably anticipate that we would start sending our first offers towards the winter of next year, or basically, September, October of 21. It could be that you may have to wait until the beginning of 2022. That being said, if you do file on Arrow, you have the ability to check the status of your appeal in real time. And once we are ready to issue a response to you, you will have that response essentially instantly.
And it's a good reminder also, the brochure, which I put back up on the screen, has all the important dates on the calendar. So that's another great reason to print out the brochure, keep it handy. It's also a great place to write your username and password, so everything is in one place. And in fact, in the Q&A section, we've posted all the important links to get to ARC, our email address, our phone number. There is also a direct link that if you click on it, will download the PDF we are talking about for you right now. We also have the contact information for Department of Assessment in case you need to reach out about any property-specific issues. Their phone number and a link to the contact form is also in the Q&A for your convenience.
Okay. For members of our audience who found this presentation helpful and perhaps want access to a copy of it for use later, it is my understanding that we are making a copy available for Legislator Solage to host on his website. If you are looking to use the video again to learn about how to file, we certainly don't mind that, but I can also suggest that you may also find another video that ARC hosts on its own website, askarcnassau.com, helpful because it goes over the same process, but is a bit swifter. The video is about 6 minutes long, and because of that 6-minute length, may be of more use while you're filling out your application than the entire presentation of this evening.
And I can confirm that already the prior presentation for Legislator Solage is up on his website, and tonight's presentation will be up on his website within the next day or so.
Okay. Just so everyone is reminded, you can get to Arrow 2 different ways. You can get to Arrow from our homepage at askarcnassau.com. There will be a link in the taskbar at the left of that page. Just click straight to Arrow, or you can go straight to Arrow through the link that Rob has already posted up in the live feed. Okay. We have a question from the audience about filing for the 21-22 tax year. As I mentioned just a short while ago, ARC's process is annual. Our filing period always runs from January through March, and that's always for one tax year only. If you don't file for that tax year during the filing period, there is no ability for ARC to take in an application after the fact. So right now we are in the filing period for the 22-23 tax year, and once that filing period concludes at the end of April, that will be it. ARC will have no authority to accept any further applications for 22-23, and ARC will not be taking any other applications in until our application period for the 23-24 tax year, and that'll be at the beginning of calendar year 2022. Okay. This member of the audience is curious about whether or not there is an advantage to providing comparable sales versus not doing so. I would suggest that the advantage versus disadvantage discussion or thought process in filling out the application is that the more information that you can provide to support your case, the better served you are. The application is your opportunity to participate in ARC's review of the value of your property. So you can participate in that process essentially to the extent that you find helpful for your case. But if one was not to submit any comparable sales, I mean, that's not necessarily going to mean that you're automatically going to be denied, but you are depriving yourself of the opportunity to participate in ARC's review and to help guide our review process. You know, our appraisal team certainly have the skills to conduct a review without any intervention from the applicant. But I think that to not participate in the review process is to essentially deprive yourself of an opportunity. Okay. Rob, I'm taking a moment to think about this question. Would you mind taking one of the next ones?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. I see one here that says, will the assessment lower the value of the property? I'm not sure if the question you're asking is if you get a lower assessment, will it lower the value? You're looking at two things. You're looking at the market value of the home. And when you're filing an appeal, you're not appealing your taxes directly. You're appealing your market value, which translates to your assessed value, which impacts your taxes. And yes, I know it gets a little confusing. In fact, there actually is a Q&A that the Department of Assessment has that talks about assessment in relation to taxes. And I am posting the link as we speak right on the Q&A right now, and that you can click on that. But what you're doing for this process is you are grieving your market value. So like in our example, the DOA determined that, and that's Department of Assessment, determined that our sample, the value of the home was $461,000. And your feeling, if you are grieving that, is that that's too high. So you would grieve that value and say, I feel it's not 461, perhaps it's 440 or 430, whatever the case may be. The mindset you're looking at is the value that Department of Assessment assigned to your home what you could sell the home for if you would put it on the market. So if you think that you could have sold your home for $461,000, then perhaps the market value and the assessed value are correct. But if you think that's too high, that you could never have sold your home for that much money, well, then you may feel you're entitled to a reduction, and you would file as such and say, I don't think my home would have sold for 461. I think I can only sell it for 430 or 400, whatever the case may be. That's the mindset. And again, you're not directly grieving your taxes. You are grieving your market value, your assessed value, which gets used to calculate your taxes later on. And again, that link that I just posted will go into more detail how assessed values and taxes, how that all works out, because it can get a little confusing.
Thank you for that, Rob. You actually picked a question that was similar to the one that I needed to chew on for a minute. And the question was, does the assessed value end up impacting market value? And the reason why I was kind of, having to sit back and take that in for a minute is because my instinct was just a flat no. And the reason my instinct was to go that way is because your assessed value is calculated from a market value that the Department of Assessment determines. So the Department of Assessment, determines that your home is worth $500,000, and then they use a ratio called the level of assessment to calculate your assessed value that actually ends up on your tax bills and is multiplied by a tax rate to actually calculate what taxes are owed for any one particular tax year. So does your assessed value affect the market value? Again, the instinct is no, but I suppose that an argument could be made that if the Department of Assessment has an assessed value on the house that results in a certain level of taxes, that can affect the sale of homes in a particular area, because people may be concerned about the taxes that they're going to be responsible for if they purchase any one individual house. So I guess the long-winded, complicated answer is that your assessed value can ultimately affect your market value to an extent, but at the same time, that's something, that our appraisal team is well trained to dealing with. They are able to look at a market and, determine to what extent taxes in a jurisdiction may be driving a price up or down. So that's just kind of captured in the, market sales analysis approach.
Yes, and to go one step further, you'll often notice if you have a habit of looking at listings on Zillow or MLS, that oftentimes in the listing information, the realtor will indicate whether there is already a grievance filed for this coming year or they haven't filed for a number of years. And once you file, there's a good chance the assessed value and the taxes will go down. So that's often taken into consideration when realtors are listing properties on the open market.
Okay. So I hope that after I chewed on that question, I actually gave a helpful answer. And thank you for backing me up on that, Rob.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on, we have a member of the audience that is curious about a property that they are aware of that sold twice in a relatively short span of time. It sold once in 2019 and once in 2020. And can that applicant pick the sale that is more advantageous to their application to present? You certainly can. However, our appraisal team is going to be aware of both sales, and they are going to have to make a determination as to, which of those two sales, if either of those sales, are reflective of market conditions. If one home sold that rapidly, I would expect that that was perhaps a buy and flip, or perhaps a purchase and knockdown and rebuild, or perhaps a purchase and renovation and resell. And it probably would not be the case that the sale in 2019 would be more indicative of market value than the sale in 2020. But that's a generalization. I don't know that for a fact for any specific circumstance. So again, our appraisal team would have to look at those two sales and make a determination about which, or if either of those sales was truly reflective of the market. But it would not be the case that if you are aware of one home selling twice in a rapid span of time, that ARC would not be aware of both sales and have to make that determination. Okay, so we have a concern from the member of the audience about choosing not to file. And then if one chooses not to file for more than 1 year in a row, if taxes are going to go back up. So again, we do attempt to reiterate that here at the Assessment Review Commission, what you are grieving, what you are challenging is the assessed value of your home. You are not, strictly speaking, grieving the taxes. It's very common and perhaps colloquial to use the expression grieve your taxes to describe what you're doing when you're filing with the Assessment Review Commission. And that may very well be the primary motivation for filing with the Assessment Review Commission, to try and lower your taxes. But functionally and technically, that is not what one is doing. So why do I go through that long explanation to try and tackle this question of taxes going up each year if you don't file? There are circumstances that can occur that could potentially increase the taxes that any one property owes, separate and apart from just the assessed value on the home. For instance, the example that I like to use is, what if we pretend that nothing changed from year 1 to year 2? Nobody built any new homes, nobody knocked down any older homes, nobody changed exemptions, everything stayed exactly the same between year 1 and year 2. Well, let's also imagine in this hypothetical that the school district's budget between year 1 and year 2 went up by 2%. I don't think that that's necessarily an uncommon occurrence here in Nassau County. So if everything else remained exactly the same and the school district's budget went up by 2%, everyone in that school district would need to contribute more taxes to make up that 2% increase in the school budget. So, not filing an assessment challenge for more than 1 year in a row by itself would not mean that taxes would definitely go up. But there are other circumstances independent of your assessment that could cause taxes to go up. That being said, we here at ARC would recommend that since assessment here in Nassau County is an annual process, that you evaluate your assessment at the beginning of every January and ask yourself the question, do you agree with it? Do you find that the Department of Assessment has set a value for your property that is not higher than it would have sold for at the beginning of January? And after that, to an extent, after the assessment is set to a number, whether one agrees with it or not, the taxes kind of fall where they may, but you would at least have the peace of mind of knowing that you did everything that you could to ensure that you agreed with and had a fair assessment. And then after that, circumstances are circumstances, and taxes could in fact go up. But that's a hypothetical. We here at ARC don't have a 8-ball, or can't predict the future quite to that level of accuracy. Trying to make a joke that probably came off not quite the way that I wanted to go. In any event, I hope that assisted you with your question. So I'm going to try and find the next one. Okay. So a member of the audience has recently done some repairs to their home, and they are concerned about whether or not that would indicate an increase in their assessed value. Rob, do you see that at 806?
I do, yes.
Do you mind taking that one?
Sure. Typically, when we're valuing homes, things like changing your roof and upgrading your driveway really don't have much of an impact on value. When we look at a home to determine the value, certain assumptions are made, and one of those assumptions is whether or not you have a roof that leaks or not. We typically assume that the roof is a functional roof in good condition and that there are no leaks. And because we're never in these homes, that's all we can do is make that assumption, because we don't walk into each home and inspect the roofs. In terms of upgrading the driveway, when you're selling your home, that may make an appeal issue in terms of how pretty your home looks from the street. That may impact it if you were selling it. For our purposes, typically, again, we don't really look at driveways too much in terms of valuing the homes. So, if we're looking at the homes and we're comparing one home that's sold to another home sale, we typically don't look at the driveways and say, well, that one's got a much nicer driveway, we're going to add value. It's typically not done. So it really shouldn't be a concern. And of course, you want to upgrade your home to keep it in good condition. And you should not do that because you're afraid it's going to affect your assessed value.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. I found the next question. So we have a member of the audience that is curious about how one can go about appealing a decision by the Assessment Review Commission. A little outside our topic, but I can touch on that briefly. So this upcoming March, at the end of March, the Assessment Review Commission will be posting our final determinations on the appeals filed last year. And the people who filed appeals last year will be informed that they'll have essentially 30 days from April 1st to file an appeal if they choose to do so. There are 2 pathways that one can take to file an appeal of their assessment after April 1st, one of which is SCAR, which is Small Claims Assessment Review. You can go to the Nassau County Clerk's website. They actually have a page dedicated to the SCAR process that may provide some helpful information. The other method is to initiate a more general lawsuit and challenge your assessment that way. Rob, if you wouldn't mind, if we could find a link to the Nassau County Clerk's website to publish in the Q&A section, that would be helpful for the audience. Okay. A member of the audience asks if they have to file an grievance every year. What I would suggest again is that since assessment is an annual process, that homeowners in Nassau County evaluate that assessment posted by the Department of Assessment, and do their research, come to a conclusion, and make their own decision as to whether that assessment is accurate or not. And if you should find that that assessment is inaccurate, that may be the circumstance that would encourage you to file an appeal. Okay, so when looking at sales locator, you would be better served in making a case that your home is overassessed by looking at sales that sold for lower than the value that the Department of Assessment used to calculate your assessed value. So if the Department of Assessment thinks that your home is worth 500,000, you want to find sales in sales locator that sold for less than 500,000. That would present a stronger case that your property is overassessed.
Jeremy, there was a question that's asking whether it's better if they use a company or they could do it themselves. I guess this goes with our typical question as, do the companies have some special secret that they use and it's better to go with a company than do it yourself?
So there's no magic bullet to this process. The representatives, if we're lucky, if the representatives are competent and experienced in filling out the application that we just demonstrated for everyone this evening. If we're not as lucky, they are less competent and eloquent in filling out the application that we presented. But they're doing the same application. It's the same form. So since the question that we here at the Assessment Review Commission are trying to answer is a fact-based question, it is not the case that only a firm can secure you a reduction versus a homeowner on their own. What ARC is looking at is answering the question of what was the property worth on January 4th. And if we find that the property was overassessed, we're happy to offer that reduction, whether that application was filed by a homeowner or that application was filed by a representative. You could have the best representative on the planet, but if ARC does not find that your home is entitled to a reduction, we're not going to offer a reduction. And conversely, if you have the worst representative on the planet, but your home is entitled to a reduction, ARC is going to offer the reduction. So what I would recommend is that a homeowner ask themselves, is the firm's expertise worth the compensation that they are asking for? In other words, firms can typically ask for up to 50% of any savings they earn you to compensate them for their time. But what they're doing is filling out the same application that we've demonstrated for you this evening. So if one is concerned that they can't make a compelling case on their own, I suppose it is an option to consider using a firm to assist you. But we here at ARC don't find that there is a significant difference in the result between when a firm files and when a person files. The question is the home overassessed or not? And it's great if we have a competent representative that is giving us an easy to understand and elegant case that the home is overassessed, but a homeowner is just as capable of making that argument and making that case that as a firm is. In fact, they may be even better equipped to do that because as the homeowner, you are experiencing your quality of life. You know what it's like to live in your neighborhood, and you are better equipped to let ARC know about the contexts of your situation. And that goes back to Part D of the application and telling us about the painted yellow line, the traffic during school hours, and all the other wonderful examples that Rob used. So you certainly have the option to hire a firm, and there are certainly firms out there that can submit a competent application on your behalf, but it is not necessary to secure a reduction.
And also remember, by using a firm, you may be losing some of the savings because when you use a firm, when they get a reduction, if they get a reduction for you, they're not doing it for free. They're either taking a percentage or a flat fee, as compared to if you do this yourself and you get a reduction, you get all the savings. So that is something to consider as well.
Okay. We have a member of the audience who is curious if adding a pool to their property may end up increasing their assessment. It certainly can. We also would need to know that if it was an in-ground pool or an above-ground pool. There is a difference in how those two are treated for assessment purposes. But broadly speaking, let's move away from the specific example of the pool to just adding something to the property, whether that be, replacing the garage with, increased living area, whether that be, adding a dormer. If you are physically changing the property by adding something to it, it is likely that the Department of Assessment is going to be aware of that, and they are going to assign a value to that addition. I suppose it could be the case that, after they look at everything, they may decide that what they had landed on in a previous year was too much. And then even with the addition that you have built, that your assessment should still go down overall. But in general, if everything else is equal and you add a feature to the property, it's going to result in an increase in your assessed value. Okay. So at this time, I think I have gotten to everyone's questions. If you disagree with me, please go ahead and utilize the Q&A feature to correct me. So Rob and I and the team don't need to run away immediately, so we're happy to take a few more minutes for any further questions. And while the audience is considering that, I'm going to again thank Rob for a wonderful presentation, and our colleague Jason, who has been assisting us behind the scenes, and certainly Legislator Solage for inviting us to speak with all of you this evening. So with that being said, give everyone just 1 or 2 more minutes for any last questions before we bid you all good evening.
Want to remind everybody that a copy of a prior presentation that we did for Legislator Solages is already on his website, on his county website, and we'll be posting a copy of this recording on his website as well within the next day or so you can keep your eyes open for that.
Okay, not necessarily seeing any new questions. I'm going to reiterate that if you think of a question that you would wanted to ask after we close out for the evening, that you can reach out to us during our business hours that are contact information listed. And I hope everybody stays warm out there. Have a wonderful evening.